Hey guys, it's Maria Park at Approach the Nerd, and welcome to finally my Fate Winx Saga review. I've been trying to get this video out forever, and now I just decided to do it as a live stream. So we're here, we're doing it, and here we go. Disclaimer: I did not hate Fate Winx Saga, but in order for me to appreciate this show, I had to separate it from Winx Club. I had to basically treat it like a comic book. I had to make it so they were not affiliated with each other whatsoever, and only the names and a little bit of the plot, which was not hard, a little bit of the plot were similar. Having said that, I will address, I do understand people's feelings when they decided to get rid of Flora, a very, representative Latina Hispanic princess fairy in this cartoon, and reinvent her as a white character who, yes, her character represents body positivity, but basically still is very problematic as whitewashing a character by reinventing her. That was a problem, especially since said character also name drops her in the series as her cousin. So that was problematic. They made it seem like they couldn't find maybe a chubbier version of Flora if they wanted to go that route and keep her Hispanic. So that was problematic. And then, of course, Musa. Musa's actress's name is Alicia Applebaum. And I looked her up. She has a lot of like European in her, and she's part Singaporean. So she does have a little bit of Asian, but Musa's character is supposed to be Eastern Asian. It's almost the exact opposite of what they did in Shang-Chi. In Shang-Chi, they made the character fully Chinese, even though in the comics, historically, he is mixed. He is half Chinese and half white. Well, in this case, they got a mixed character to play someone who was supposed to be fully Asian. So I don't understand why Hollywood does what it does. It's confusing, and it's always been confusing to me, but it is what it is. But I do understand that when I look at Alicia Applebaum as Musa in this, I see a little bit of ethnicity in her. So it's obvious that she's not completely white, but quite frankly, as ambiguous as I am, she could literally be anything. And I did not take her for Asian. So I understand why people are a little bit in their feelings about Musa being whitewashed, because essentially that is what happened. So I had to take all of that out, put that aside, because I'm not talking about the casting choices and none of that. That's not something I want to debate. We're talking strictly the actual series. So the characters themselves. So outside the actors, I'm not going to talk about the actors anymore. Bloom in this series reminded me a lot of Nancy Drew from CW's Nancy Drew, which means she got on my nerves 95% of the time. It's because she has this inability to listen. So I don't know what it is, but she just has this inability to listen. Now, again, had this show been its own thing, like a whole independent show, like we had nothing to do with Winx Club, this would have been very, very entertaining. I'm not saying there weren't elements that were. I'm just saying it would have been very entertaining, and so I wouldn't have to have these comparisons and going in having to separate myself to be able to enjoy the show. So yeah, basically the story with Bloom, it's kind of the same. If you follow the cartoon, basically she was taken to Earth by her sister when their kingdom was attacked, and basically raised by Mike and Vanessa, who are also in this as Bloom's parents, who find her. The only difference is Mike was a firefighter, I believe, in the cartoon, if I remember correctly. And in this one, they don't specify what he is. They actually make it seem like Blue's parents sometimes care, but sometimes feel like she's a problematic child, and it's almost like they're one step from sending her off to boot camp before she goes to Alfea. So it's really interesting to me that's kind of how I felt. Like that's what I felt was happening. Like her mother and Bloom, or Vanessa and Bloom, seem very toxic as mother and daughter. Until the very end of this series, I really thought that they didn't like each other. And then when you find out that Bloom's powers freaked out when she got upset and she ended up causing her adopted mother to be burned, it just kind of, added on the fuel to the fire, I guess. that Bloom did not like her and her mother did not like Bloom. So there was definitely kind of like an air of, why did these people keep this child if this child is so bad? I mean, it was, I believe, and it's been a minute since I've seen it, but I don't think there was ever a point in the cartoon, and again, I shouldn't compare it to the cartoon, where Mike's character takes the door off of Bloom's room. So like, it was very toxic. I mean, I feel like her going to Alfea was probably the best thing that ever happened to her, to be honest. Now let's talk about Alfea and this whole magical fairy world. So yes, they are fairies. I don't think we get a whole bunch of context on what constitutes as a fairy, because outside of Bloom finally using her dragon fire attack at the end, where you see her have wings, nobody has wings. So they don't have fairy wings. Everybody still has their respective elemental abilities. Some have better control over them than others. Like Stella's character is made to really be a little bit, she came off honestly as being a sociopath at the beginning of this series. Like, and they were like, oh yeah, she got mad at some girl, like her former roommate, and blinded her, and she just blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, wow, she definitely changed in character. But that obviously it was just her losing her control of her abilities, because she has a very nervous condition because her mother is a straight up bitch. I mean, Queen Luna in this is completely 180 to how she actually is in the cartoon. They made her a manipulative, evil bitch. So she's not nice in any scope of the imagination. She's money hungry, power hungry, bitch, basically. It's what she is. So Stella being raised by her, I honestly can say 100% I get why she was traumatized. I think I thought it was weird that Stella had a relationship with Sky. But then, to be honest, all of them being British except for Bloom also kind of threw me off too. I'm like, wow, everyone's British now. So it's just stuff you're not used to. So again, I had to separate a lot. But yeah, Stella and Sky, even in this, never really seemed compatible to me, to be fair. But that's just my opinion. It was not a believable relationship in my mind. I just didn't see it. I didn't see the chemistry. I didn't see, even as a backstory, I didn't understand it. So I just kind of let that go. Yeah, you're going to hear me say a lot of this, guys. Now, I have questions. So as I go along in this review, I'm going to ask these little questions that pop into my head. So when Bloom first gets there and everybody's like talking, she meets her roommates, and you know how it all goes. And I'll get to the friendship part that's confusing in a minute. They don't tell her why she shouldn't go out of this barrier. They don't tell her that she shouldn't go out of this barrier. They don't tell her about the burn ones. I'm like, why would you not tell someone who is not from your world that there are things called the burn ones that are very hard to kill, that could kill you? Like, why was that never something that was brought up? I don't understand that. I feel like that should have been in the student handbook. It should have been an orientation. I don't understand why that was not a concept for this plot, because that's the thing. This is the thing that could harm you. Why are you not telling your students, don't go out of the barrier? I don't understand that. So yeah, of course her character had to be the one that goes out of the barrier. And of course, what does she do? There's a burn one. It's like, okay. So yeah, I was kind of questioning a lot of things in this series, and that probably was one of the first ones that kind of bothered me a little bit. Now I know there were a lot of characters that were kind of merged together. Like, well, let's start here. Let me talk about the characters that were not in it. We did not have Tekna. We did not have Timmy. We didn't have Nabu. We didn't have, well, of course, Flora. We didn't have Helio. We didn't have Brandon. So we were missing 3 specialists, and we're missing 2 Winx fairies. It just kind of felt like, I don't know. I realized with Terra, you couldn't have Helia because there's no Flora. But I don't understand why excluding a tech fairy out of your world was necessary. I don't get that at all. Why wasn't, Timmy and Tekna a thing in this universe? I don't know. I just, like I said, guys, I I'll get to the stuff I liked in a second, but okay, so let's talk about Bloom again, or as I like to call her, magical Nancy Drew. Every time she would learn something, whether it be from Beatrix or Rosalind eventually, she always believed it. It wasn't even like a question. It wasn't like, oh, you could be lying to me. It's always like, no, everybody's been not telling me the truth. All I want is the truth. I don't care who I hurt. I just need to get the truth. See the Nancy Drew reference there? And every choice that Bloom made basically led to something getting effed up. And actually, because of her, basically, Dowling is dead. Like Rosalind kills her at the end. And I have to say, now I don't know if she's going to be dead because, you know, sometimes there's twists and stuff. And if we get season 2, they may bring her back. But for all intents and purposes, technically, Bloom is the reason that Rosalind killed her and was able to take over Alfea, because she had let Rosalind out and she empowered her. She led her to where she could get power. She basically made her own Voldemort. That's basically what I'm saying. It would literally be like if baby Harry Potter was laying in the crib and Voldemort couldn't do anything. And then and Harry's like, touch me, share the power. You know, it's just like, someday we'll fight, but just take some time for yourself, build yourself up. And I'm just like, what the hell? I'm like, the girl does not listen at all. Like, she did not. I found myself watching each episode just waiting to see if she would actually pay attention to what everyone was saying to her. And she didn't trust anyone. It's like, and every time she get like a little nugget of information, she's like, she just had to run with it. And it's like, you don't know this world. You don't know these people. What is wrong with you? Like, oh, I was in my feelings. I was also in my feelings when basically in terms of the girls and their friendship, because we know, and again, I'm being a hypocrite because I have to reference the cartoon again. When you look at the girls, the actual, fairies and Alfea, our favorite Winx group, they are very bonded. Like, they become very good friends. They are invested in each other's problems. They talk to each other. In this version, it seemed like they were pacifying each other because they were roommates and they had to see each other all the time. It was just like, yeah, I'm having a problem. This is, yeah, we don't care. It's almost, and it really wasn't like people were just not paying attention. Like Musa, for instance, instead of her having her ability to, manipulate sound waves and music, she's an empath. And so things were hurting her, which is what it is. But I kind of felt like everybody was ignoring Tara. And then everybody would blame Aisha for being the snitch. It's basically the whole thing. Snitches, basically snitches get stitches is really what Aisha's role was in this show. They made her be like so straight-laced that, she couldn't be trusted. And I thought that was problematic because honestly, Aisha telling on Bloom should have happened earlier. Then none of this shit would have happened in the show. I feel like she should have been like, you might want to check your girl because she's doing some stuff. And it may lead to some things. And it does. So everybody like kind of turning, especially Stella, who had been a complete biatch in the first half of this season of the series. Her being the one being judgmental to Aisha. It's like everybody had this whole entitlement thing against each other. And it was very weird. It was just weird. So like, I didn't feel like these girls were bonded. In the last episode, they all go to Bloom's house and they're all like hanging out and spending the weekend or however long they were staying there. And I'm just like, I don't feel like you guys are close enough to have this bond. Like, I just don't. I don't feel like these girls are bonded. So that's another little nitpick. I feel like they could have done a lot more to bond these girls because the majority of the time these girls acted like they didn't like each other and didn't really care what the other person was going through. So there's that. Now the specialists had their own drama. I mean, we had Sky, whose father apparently died in this, like, there was supposed to be like this battle where his dad sacrificed himself, to save everybody else. But turns out that actually was not true. There was this place called Asterfell, which, Rosalind said I think they were called blood witches or whatever, pretty much bad witches that were doing like sacrificial stuff. So they basically were going to take out the entire village, but there was not supposed to be anyone, I guess, but the blood witches there, but it turned out to be an actual village. And baby Bloom was there. And so it was her village that gets apparently, destroyed along with Beatrix. And Beatrix is basically a mix between our three antagonists in the cartoon, which, I can get into that later if you need me to. But I felt like the way they explained it was kind of effed up. And I don't know how Sky's father actually survived, but we know he did survive because he's working with Rosalind at the end, taking over Alfea. But like everything that Sky knew about his father was a lie. And so I know that's going to play into season 2, probably his emotional stability, his, self-esteem, his ability to be good. He's going to have a whole journey because his dad is basically a villain. Riven. Now, Riven was screwed up in the cartoon. He is more screwed up in this one. It's so bad that he has such low self-esteem and is so jealous of like Sky and anybody that does better than him that he kind of goes off the rails a little bit. Even though he tries to have a conscience, though, he still kind of goes off the rails a little bit, which I thought was really weird. And I don't know why, but they introduced this guy named Dane. And he's like this first year specialist, and Tara's like into him, but turns out he said some like really mean, like body shaming stuff, kind of implies that about Tara, but he ends up having like a mini threesome with Riven and Beatrix because I guess he's bisexual. So they made as a bisexual, I'm like, of course the bisexual is going to be in a threesome, of course, that's representation. But basically he didn't have to choose. He wanted to be a Riven and wanted to be with Beatrix. And so that whole, circle of what the hellness with them was a thing. But to be fair, Dane is not a character that I ever remember in the cartoon. So I'm assuming he is also a reinvention because I don't know who that is. And maybe, honestly, he may be a hybrid between Timmy and Helia. I don't know. But that whole character itself, that whole situation with Riven and Beatrix is just weird. Riven's running with Musa, even though if you know the circle of agony of their relationship in the cartoons throughout the seasons, we don't even have that because, quite frankly, Musa's into Tara's brother. So she has a really uncomfortable conversation with Riven for like 20 seconds. And that's literally the only real interaction that these two characters have. Will that change in the future? I don't know. Because again, Riven was a bad boy. Musa does get with him. I don't know if that's going to happen in season 2 if we get season 2. So yeah, no Musa. It's like they tried. It's kind of like they do with other TV shows where they try to do something different than the original content, but sometimes they make it weird. The whole the Riven and Beatrix and Dane thing is just weird. It's just weird to me. Professor Harvey, Tara and Sam is Tara's brother, his father, he's a botany teacher. All the teachers seem very effective, except they don't really do much to help them. like to be fair, Professor Harvey does help when people, get attacked by a burn one or whatever, and they start getting the sickness or whatever. He does help with that, but it seems like all these kids are just running around free to do whatever the hell they want. And they don't solve problems. They just make more. When they have issues, they don't talk through them. They don't go to teachers for help. The teachers seem to be very hands off of all of these experiences in this show, which is very weird. I actually did enjoy this, though. I don't know if I enjoyed more of the nitpicking parts of it or if I enjoyed the fact that this was an entire magical world that was dark, that is kind of like a darker, dysfunctional version of Winx Club. That might be why I was attracted to it. It is a dysfunctional version of the main cartoon. And I mean, that's probably the best description for it in my mind. But yeah, so all of these characters, like, that were introduced, I feel like almost every one of them had more to give and more story to show, but we were so wrapped up in Bloom trying to figure out who she was, and why she apparently, I forgot the name. Oh my gosh. She's not human. She's a person that she's pretty much a spirit that takes over another human's body. If you remember what it is, please put it in the comments. When I get to it, I'll look at it. But she basically was put into the dead baby of Vanessa and Mike. And so instead of her actually being a baby they find in a, like in a fire, in a building of fire or whatever, like Mike does in the cartoon, she's actually just born into the stillborn baby that was Mike and Vanessa's, which is interesting. It's an interesting concept. Like I said, it's much darker. It's like if Winx met the magicians, you know, with a little bit less of the sexual stuff. I mean, then that is kind of how I would describe this. I felt like I said, there were a lot of characters that I really wanted to know more about. Like, I really want to know what exactly Bloom's parents did besides talk about her. I'm like, and they didn't seem to have, like, they did imply the mother was like popular in high school and she was a cheerleader and she wanted, you know, Bloom to be a cheerleader like her. But okay, what do you do? What do you guys do now? What is Micah still a firefighter? I mean, what do you do outside of sitting in the house talking about Bloom? It was very weird for me. It was very weird for me. I did like Farrah Dowling, the headmistress of Alfea. I did like her. I just felt like maybe, and I get what she was doing. She was trying to keep her secret of, you know, being involved in them taking down the people in the village, but also she wanted to protect all of her, you know, all of her students as well as Bloom from Rosalind, because Rosalind is not dead. She's being held captive or basically imprisoned, you know, by, you know, Farrah Dowling. And I kind of felt bad for her because, I mean, she wanted to trust Bloom, but at the same time, Bloom kept doing things that were making her very hard to trust. So yeah, and Bloom, and like I said, Bloom would just go out of her way and just do whatever she wants. She was like, "When you can't stop me, I'm going to do it." She went and, you know, free Beatrix. She, you know, all of these things that she did of her own accord because you can't tell me what to do. All of you are lying to me. None of you are telling me the truth, so I'm going to do what I want with very limited information. Bloom is probably the most annoying character in this entire series. She just annoyed me. I mean, she really annoyed me. She is literally the Mary Sue of this entire miniseries. Like it, and I really don't like Mary Sue characters. And she really rubbed me the wrong way. But yeah, I will say some positives. The CG was not bad. Like the use of powers was not bad. I loved whenever Aisha would use her powers. I thought that was done very well. Tara, you know, utilizing her plant magic, even though she kind of really reminded me more of Poison Ivy than she did of Flora, but you know, it's a thing. But like all of their powers for the most part look very impressive. I love the cinematography. They did a really good job of making you feel like you were separated from Earth. Like they looked like you were in somewhere mystical, like within this bubble of magic. So I'm completely okay with that. There are actually times when Bloom's adventures at school kind of made me feel like Sky High, like how she couldn't use her magic initially. And, you know, she basically, Stella tried to teach her that by using anger, her, you know, powers would work. But then when she wasn't angry, she was completely ineffective. And that's something that Stella's mother was teaching her. And then when Bloom finally was able to tap into her powers, which seemed to happen very quickly, actually, you know, she had that whole evolution. That was such a Sky High moment for me. If you haven't seen Sky High, great movie, watch it. So yeah, there were elements of that as well, you know, just offhand, but I stand by my whole Harry Potter or Winx Club meets the Magicians, because that kind of is in line of how the show is for me. Now again, Beatrix, the air fairy who can manipulate, I think it's electricity. So she seems to be a lot smarter than the other students. It's almost like she's been around a lot longer, but then we've learned that she was actually trained by Sky's and taken care of by Sky's dad. She is in this order that wants to free Rosalind, and they basically want to, it's almost like they want to rule everything. It's basically what it is. And Beatrix is very manipulative, does not care about people dying. She has no conscience about that whatsoever. And I'm curious. I mean, she really is. She is the villainess of, besides Rosalind, of this series. In some ways, she might be a little scarier than Rosalind, but Rosalind has that quiet. Rosalind's the kind of villain where you know she's no good, but she can put on a good front and say really cool, you know, very organized and manipulative words where you don't understand you're being manipulated. But Beatrix is just straight up. She's she's something else. Um, so Beatrix was I was impressed by her actress. I was impressed on how much I disliked her. I was impressed on how when she was having a mental breakdown about her, village, town, whatever being burned down, that you actually felt sad for her and really thought, hey, maybe she is doing this for revenge against the people that killed her family, which in retrospect kind of did happen. But her and Bloom were basically found apparently at the same time, even though I really don't think that's the story. I think it's going to be closer to the cartoon. I think her sister is alive. I think her sister actually is the one that brought her to Earth, and her spirit became the baby spirit, or however the hell that happens. It's a different rule here, different rules. But I think that actually is not Bloom's true backstory, obviously, because of her power up and she has fairy wings. But yeah, overall, if I was to sit and just judge this, it has its issues, but like all of the secrets and, and all of the suspense on what could possibly happen, even in terms of where did the burn ones come from and why were they initially human? That's the thing, because they were human beings. How did they become the burn ones? Why aren't the students educated? When they first come to the school, not to take on said burn ones. Why is Bloom so effective in burning the burn ones when they are potentially made out of fire and her power is fire? You would think on principle. I mean, in Pokemon Go, I normally have a hard time fighting a Pokemon with fire. Kathleen Billy, another one has fire. So, I mean, it's interesting that her fire is so strong that it can take out and wipe out all of these burn ones. But again, she is the main protagonist, so I guess that makes sense. I would love to know exactly what the specialists are training for. I know that seems weird because I do kind of go over their history of the specialists and, how they've always gone to school and they're protectors. But are you at war? I mean, I don't understand. I understand that they had to make it in this so that technically Stella is the only princess and her mother, Queen Luna, is the only royalty. So none of the girls are princesses. I don't know what creative choice that was or why that was a creative choice. I thought it would be interesting to explore different realms or kingdoms and have all these princesses going to school together, and then have Bloom feel more like the odd person out because she doesn't realize she has royal lineage. So I think that would have been a very good aspect to this, but they decided not to do that. So what do the specialists do when they graduate? Are they like royal guards? I mean, what do they actually do? They go out looking for burn ones? I don't know. I mean, the only thing I can think of is the specialists are just the military, but I mean, the kingdom already has its own military. So I'm very confused on, in this universe, what the heck they do. So it's a thing, I guess. I don't know. I did like Saul Silva, Sky's guardian, former best friend to Sky's dad, and the one that stabbed him to death. Didn't happen to tell Sky that he killed his dad. No, but we know that's not true. As a matter of fact, at the end of this series, his dad arrests him, or now he gets arrested by Queen Luna. And the dad is very much alive, but for the attempted murder of him. So there's a lot of twists and turns. I guess if you look at it from that perspective, it's also got a little Pretty Little Liars thrown in too. There's so many shows I can just put together. But the concepts of everything in this show, like what does everyone actually accomplish when they leave here? Because they're not going back to their kingdoms to take what they learned home. What do they do with this magic in this world? What do they do outside of Alfea? Where do they go outside of Alfea? Where would Bloom be expected to go? Is she supposed to take her newfound magic back to Earth, where they don't even know about fairies? And also, the specialists, where do they go when they graduate? Like, what do they do? Somebody please explain that. And then who in the hell are the burn ones? Who made the burn ones? Why did they make the burn ones? I mean, they almost imply like Rosalind made them, but I guess that could be a thing. But I don't know. And like so much of it is interesting and intriguing that's why I watch it, even though I nitpick the hell out of it because a lot of it is very nitpicky. And Bloom is just a very annoying damn character. She's not in the cartoon, but she is definitely annoying in this. So yeah, there's that. I'm going to look at some of your questions, guys. I've been talking for 29 minutes straight, and I'm going to see. I probably missed some things, so let's see what I did. And you guys got me for another hour. So we're going to try and do this at like an hour because I have another doctor's appointment and it is 45 minutes away. So I need to make sure I am there on time. Hi, Nicholas. How are you? This should be titled Finally the Fate Review. Yes, Serenity. I know. I know. The video was longer. I had video inserts and things like that. I'm initially saying some of the same stuff, but it makes me angry when I think about that video. Maybe, but hey, at least it's here because, honey, I got some words for this review. I want to hear them. Oh, boy. Hi, Ito. How are you? We move down. Okay. Oh, you guys were talking about, yes, if you guys didn't know, if you're an X-Men fan and you want to talk about Krakoa, I made a post to put all of your Krakoa, conversations, theories, and everything else in that post. It gives you an outlet. I posted 2 there. I'd love to hear your theories. Yes, please let Ito hear your theories because I think he's lonely. I think he just did 2, and I think that's the only ones that are in there. So, let me move down so I can get to the questions. Okay, for this stream, I got some serious words for Fate the Winx Saga. Oh boy. Let's see. Don't worry, I will. And I'm just trying to figure out how you'll go alphabetical, numerical. Okay, 1 second. Something for every character. I mean every character. All right, so now I'm going to where we actually started the stream. I don't want to miss anybody's comments, so I'm just kind of going down the row. Okay, was there any reason for Flora being whitewashed? Not just whitewashed, completely changed to another damn character. I mean, they tried to say that they wanted to have a character that was overweight so they could have like body positivity representation, because in the actual Winx cartoon, there really are not any overweight characters. And so I get that they wanted to include that, but they didn't have to make her white. They still could have found a Hispanic girl. I don't understand why they did that. It's very, and why did it have to be Flora? It could have been anybody, be brave, make Bloom that way. It's weird. It's really weird. I had to do the same thing, but I'm like, what about Tekna? Where is she at though? Exactly. I don't know why Tekna was out. I love Tekna. It's very strange that we did not see any, we didn't see, Tekna, no Timmy, no Hylia. Well, again, I know why Hylia wasn't in it, because if you don't have Flora, there's no reason to have Hylia. I know that sounds stupid, but I mean, it almost seems like in the Winx cartoon, every specialist was made for the girls. Like, there's no such thing as a single Winx for a while. Hi, Mercenary. How are you? I think it's all a form of microaggression. It could be. Like, I don't understand the logic behind Musa's casting. I really don't. I don't get that. I don't know how they didn't see that coming a mile away. At this point, it is 2021. I have no idea why you did not see that coming. That people were going to be upset about that. The only character that translated decently well was surprisingly Musa. Other than that, no one else. I feel like Musa, the character itself, was not the problem. It was the casting choice. But even with Musa, her being made into an empath was an interesting choice. Like an emotion fairy or, empath fairy, whatever. I love the fact that she used music, and they kept her using music in this by having her listen to her music in her earbuds to distract her from feeling everybody else's stuff. But I would have loved to know how she would have used like some kind of symphonic, energy or like, sound waves as weapons. That would have been really cool. If you had a Tekna, you would have had a technopath. And here you had like, I guess, a music path. I don't know. I just thought that was a very cool concept. I hate that they completely took that away. So I don't know. It's a thing. Is it just me or was Bloom a Mary Sue? Yes, absolutely. Yes. The nerd Queen Luna was basically Dolores Umbridge and a different mythical rapper. Yep. And let's not forget about the complete techno erasure. You would think with a mostly British cast. Yeah, you would think to enlist the one British fairy who uses technology in various forms of electricity as a weapon. I agree with that. I agree absolutely with that. I think they kind of took her power and gave it to the hybrid for Beatrix. So Yeah, there, like I said, there was just so much that I had questions about in this. I still feel like we didn't get all the information to really understand what the burn ones are. We didn't. We didn't. I feel like they're going to be a mystery. Maybe they'll answer that in season 2. Maybe that was always the point. But it's just it's very open ended because you're like, you learn that these used to be people. Can they still be people? Are they from ancient times? Are they just people that randomly get infected and eventually turn into a burn one? It's weird. Like the lore behind it is not really transparent. So, but to be fair, again, I bring this up for a 4th time in this stream. Nobody told Bloom her first day in this entirely new world about the burn ones. They let her just run around and do whatever the hell she wanted. So I don't know. I like how different it is. I will say this: it's dark. It's kind of like Sabrina dark, you know. So I don't hate it. I have to separate it. But even when I separate it, there are parts of it that still don't make any sense to me. Let's see. That one, we didn't have those characters yet. Doesn't mean they can't show up later. They can always introduce them in season 2. Maybe they wanted to save some stuff for not all at once. Well, that's fine. I just feel like the characters you do have should bond more because I need to believe. Like if you look at the thumbnail for this video, they look like they're best friends, but they're not. No point in time in this entire series did they act like they were best friends. They acted like people that needed to help each other to survive, but they didn't act like best friends. So it's a thing. And don't get me started on Miss Dowling. She tried so hard to be Miss Paragon. When she was in actuality, she was Griselda. She almost was like a hybrid between them, though. There were moments where she was like Farragonda, but she was, I get what you're saying, but I feel like like Beatrix was merged. I feel like she was a hybrid. These two characters were made into one to make Dowling. That's what I think happened. I feel like anyone who didn't watch the source material before watching this and then decides to go back to do it, they're going to hate this series even more. I do feel like people will find problem with it, but if they don't know where it initially came from, what will probably happen is they'll think this is the real story. And I think that'll make people upset too. I swear I couldn't with Bloom. Like seriously, she didn't even try when it came to magic. It's like with Bloom, when she gets a little heated, dragon fire power activate. And when someone with some common sense actually tells you not to rely on those negative emotions because it's unstable and will not always get the best results. Yeah, she like got so many attitudes. She was getting attitude with so many people. It was weird. People that were supposed to be friends to her. She was like, I can't trust you. How do I can trust you? She was, I don't know. Like I said, every time I watched Bloom, it was like I was watching an extended episode of Nancy Drew. And I'm like, I can't handle this emotionally. It's a thing, guys. Let's see. Make sure I didn't skip someone. Sorry. That seems to be the trend with the quality of Netflix interpretations. I hate the Monkey King adaptation to all hell. Avatar may end up being the same way. I'm really worried about that. But at least we're getting Avatar Studios, so I'm happy with that. Did this series get renewed for season 2? I think it did. I'm not 100% sure, but honestly, the way Netflix goes, to be honest, even if it gets renewed, it doesn't mean it stays renewed because there's been 3 or 4 shows that Netflix has green lighted and then they just canceled them last minute. So until it's released and if we see a trailer, I don't take anything they say at face value anymore. But let me see. I'm pretty sure season 2. Yes, it has been renewed, but they have not given us a date yet. So, and Brian Young, I believe, is one of the writers, and he actually is one of the writers for the Vampire Diaries. And I will say that that shows a lot in this series, especially with the whole interactions between Sky and Bloom. I had absolute Stefan, Elena kind of vibes going on in the original, like the beginning of Vampire Diaries series. So even a little Damon thrown in there with Riven. So because Riven does remind me a lot of Damon. And now that I've said that, you cannot unsee it. So it makes sense. It seems that Rosalind had some other affiliates before House, would Beatrix learn the various magical artifacts and mystical spells before she got into Alfea. Yeah, she's probably got a whole network. Absolutely. I mean, she is like Voldemort in this. So she's the female Voldemort, and Bloom is basically Harry Potter. only with Nancy Drew elements. Dane is an entirely brand new character made for the show. He is not a reimagination. Okay. I'm not a big fan of him, to be honest. When I watched it, I didn't see the previous series, so I somewhat liked it, but then I came to my senses eventually. Now, again, I don't hate it because I ended up, I mean, it was good enough for me to keep watching it. And I'm curious to see how they write themselves out of this Burn Ones, you know, Rosalind plot, because there's a lot going on. And the girls are back at school now and they have to deal with it. And they also have to deal with the fact that most of this stuff is Bloom's fault. So it's a thing. Let's see. Changeling. Oh, thank you. That was driving me nuts. Like, I was like, what was it called? They kept saying it because I think Aisha was the first one to say it. Oh, you're a changeling. And she's like, a what? I'm like, I don't think that was a great way of telling her what she is, but yeah, that whole concept was interesting to me because the idea of a baby dying and then a fairy spirit taking over its body is creepy. Just saying it out loud. That's very, very creepy. Yeah, happy belated Father's Day. Let's see. They're close to their territory. Reasons for taking various. What did I miss? Oh, let me go back. Changing, basically taking from actual Fae mythos, where a fairy ends up switching an infant with a fairy, either for a way for the Sealy court to spy on mortals that are close to their territory. Reasons for taking it are various. Okay, I gotcha. Still interesting. I mean, because I remember in the actual cartoon, she was not a changeling. She was just brought by her sister when their kingdom was under attack to Earth. And she was the one that I think inherited Dragonfire, not her sister. So even though her sister was next in line for the throne, it's a big complicated mess. My mind is still trying to understand who thought Aisha talking about wading through poop as part of her origin was a good idea. Yeah. Yeah. Like I said, I feel like Aisha's story and character was very problematic in that she became the one that they really didn't trust because she kept telling on people. But I'm like, she really wasn't telling on everybody. She would talk to them first. She'd be like, you shouldn't do this. This is not what you should be doing. You really should not be doing this. You really should not do this. And it wasn't until like, you know, Bloom was like, I'm going to free Beatrix when, you know, that's when Aisha's like, hold up, let's take a step back here. This is messed up. And then she told, which she should have, because what actually ended up happening, everything went to hell and it is Bloom's fault. So it's a thing. I feel bad for Aisha. Burn Ones are a pretty interesting concept. They are. I just have question marks. And watching season 2, but I have issues with some of the creative choices. Brian Young took what worked in Vampire Diaries to this show, and it didn't mostly work. Besides upsetting fans, yeah, I know. You could tell he was definitely implementing his early CW Vampire Diaries writing, you know, tropes, because there was so much. There was a lot of CW drama between them in terms of romance. The whole love triangle with Stella still trying to get back with Skye technically. And then the whole Skye and Bloom attraction, and then the whole thing with Riven on the side. Like Riven is the daemon of this series. He just is. And yeah, I mean, I probably could assign like multiple characters from Vampire Diaries to these people. Like for me, Aisha straight up is Bonnie, trillion% is Bonnie. No, Caroline is kind of in a way. I don't want to say Musa. Actually, let me revoke that. I think Bonnie is actually closer to Musa. And then Caroline technically would be more like Tara. Because if you remember, Caroline had a very big inferiority complex with Elena. So, and if you've read the Vampire Diaries books, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Because the books are a little bit different from the TV show. But yeah, lots of CW Vampire Diaries plot in this show. My thoughts about the Burn Ones. They are the civilians that were affected by the wild dragon flame with a zombie infection, similar to how the Phoenix Force drove its host to insanity and chaos. I could see that. The Burn Ones could all be from that village, from Astrophels. They could all spawn from there. Have you done a video talking about Shadowhunters? I can never stop watching or talking about that series. I have not. And I've read Cassandra Clare's original books, like City of Bones, City of Glass. I need to make time to talk about the series. They changed a lot, but a lot of stuff they kept the same, which I was happy about. I wish that they had Clary have more of the curlier hair, like, and redder hair, like she was supposed to have in the series, because that was like something that made her starkly different from her mother. I wish, what happened to her mother in the TV show was not her fate. I wish they had kept her mother's fate and Luke's fate like it was canonly in the book. There's a lot of things I could actually do a comparison between the books and how they ended. And well, technically I can't even say they ended, because now, we have Shadow Academy and all that, but the original series, the TV series is based on, I would love to do. I probably should make time to do a comparison video or stream on Shadowhunters, because I was always into Shadowhunters. And I've always loved Izzy and Simon. I named my dog Simon after the character Simon. Everyone thinks I did it off of the Chipmunks, but no, I named him Simon after Simon in Shadowhunters. So now you know. Having these fairies, witches, meet Daggeroff consultants of the military. I don't know if would they be military? Would specialists be considered consultants for the Royal Guard? It's such a confusing thing. I need to know what the hierarchy, what the caste system, what all of this stuff is, because the only thing we know is that Stella's a princess, her mother's a queen, and everybody else is normal. Like, I don't really understand that at all. And I kind of feel like Bloom's going to find out she's a princess. Maybe all of the girls will find out they're actually princesses in season 2, and that was hidden from them. And like, maybe they're not allowed to know. I don't know. They need to come up with something, because all the girls are princesses, and I don't get why only Stella is. Because if you want representation, I'm just going to throw it out there. Don't make the white blonde girl the only royal. Have the minorities play into that too, because it doesn't make sense. So just throwing it out there. I swear Brian Young, who was there, were for Julie Plec. Carolyn Dries treated Bonnie Sheila Bennett, Katarina Alexander Graham, as he thought we should have Aisha suffer. Oh, you mean like the way she was treated in the show? I heard there's a lot of like behind the scenes drama on Vampire's Diaries. I'm learning a lot about Alaric's actor, Alaric, how he has shown racism, homophobia, transphobia. These are all things I've heard. I have no proof of that. I don't work behind the scenes, but I guess my question is, why was he not canceled if that's what's really going on? And like, even Kat Brown came out and said that he was very horrible to her. So I don't know. It's weird. Some phases her, which doesn't sit well with me. Oh, because Aisha. Yeah, I get that. Maybe Rosalind is driven to gain control of the academy by practicing dark arts of the magic. The Burmans maybe are blood witches. I think they are. I think they're everyone from Aster Fells. That's what I think they are. We don't know how many people were in that, village or town, but they all could be like angry spirits of being burned alive in that town, which would be kind of cool. I appreciate the overweight aspect, but eliminating her minority status sucks. I absolutely agree with that. I don't get why that had to be a thing. There you go. Now there's a good series that I like. So is season 2 coming? We don't know. Well, I think, it's confirmed by Netflix, but I'm just going to say this, guys, again. I've seen multiple series on Netflix get another season, and then we wait. And then somebody in the executive office decides just to go ahead and cancel it. They have done this a lot. That almost happened to Atypical. They were going to just like cancel it after season 3, and then they decided to do a final season 4. So until I see a trailer, I'm not going to believe it. So whenever they say, oh, another season's coming, I'm like, okay, I'll wait till it's released, and then I will talk about it. I think the teaching staff wasn't diverse enough, and I kind of dislike Rosalind's actress. The show seems to only understand face value representation, and they turned Aisha into the token black friend. Yeah, I know. I can't even argue that fact. I mean, empathy is such an underrated superpower in general. It is. I mean, being an empath is awesome. It is, but I loved what they did with her original power in the cartoon, and I don't understand why we couldn't have something like that. It would have looked really cool, like very cool, played out in live action form, and I don't know why they didn't do that. I don't. The only characters that translated well was Musa, because while her powers originally was music, by having her be an empath and showing her powers reflective vibrations with different keys. And see, that's the thing. Like, when they were all in the class and they were all doing their demonstrations and you did see Musa do that, I was like, she totally could have had that whole musical, vibration, power that she had as her original ability. And quite frankly, they could have just said, because she's so in tune with musical vibration, she's also in tune with human emotions, hence why she also has empath abilities. But I wanted her to be able to use music. I loved it. I loved the little vibration harp she used to do. I thought that was really cool. I don't know why they took that. But again, I digress. It's a different universe. This is a comic book. This is Earth 999. So another one, not the one we're normally used to. I forgot to say, yeah, I usually miss your live streams due to time zones. I'm glad I made it to this one. I'm glad you made it too. I'm sorry. I know we all live in different areas of the world and the globe. I apologize. I miss Tekna. I love Tekna. I love Tekna and Timmy. I think they are adorable. I do not like that they are not in it. I really don't. Flora does exist in the universe. She's name dropped by Tara as being her cousin. Yeah, I said that earlier in the stream. I know that she name dropped her. It's just sad that she's not in this. I mean, why couldn't she just be in it as well? We could have had Flora, Tara, and then the rest of the girls. I don't understand that at all. Maria, the burn ones could blood witches or fairies that practice dark magic. Yeah. I do think that, I'm going to stand by this. This is my theory. I think the burn ones are the burned alive witches, or I don't even know if they were blood witches. They could be the villagers of Asterfels that, Rosalind ordered them to attack and burn to the ground, knowing that there were people in there. I think that's probably what they could be. Vengeful spirits. And, it's a thing. Let's see, make sure I did not skip. Bloom is definitely toxic. Yes, I know. And I know that's problematic for some people, because the character of Bloom in the cartoon is not. She's very sweet in the cartoon. But in this, seriously, guys, I didn't even make it through the first episode. The first half of the episode, I wanted to smack the hell out of her. I'm just gonna be real with you. I wanted to smack her to a level that was not normal. And all I kept seeing was Nancy effing Drew. I kept seeing Nancy Drew, because when I watch Nancy Drew, she does stuff and she doesn't care if it hurts other people sometimes. Even though she cares about her friends, she does things without thinking of the consequences for others. And I want to smack the hell out of her. And it literally translated into this, miniseries, because that's what I call this. It's a miniseries. It translated into Fate. That character, if you put them side by side, they could literally be cousins or sisters. They are essentially the same character. So that was hard for me. Bloom was very likable in the cartoon, not so much in the live action version. Exactly. Also, Aisha deserves so much better. She deserved a lot. She deserved plot. She was just literally the ones everyone blamed when they got told on. That's literally her whole role. I can't with this show. It's not good. The whole time I was watching it, I was not happy. They were just trying to make the show darker and edgy, which I don't mind. It's just the story and the whitewashing. Yeah, I have no excuse for Musa. I know what they tried to do with Flora. It just still doesn't make sense to me. But Musa, I have no excuse. I don't know what the hell was happening with them. It got renewed for season 2. Yeah, I did see that. Was the actress that played... was that the actress that played Nancy Drew? No, at first I thought it was. Her name is like Kennedy something, but no, it's not. It's a completely different actress. And I was like, but I kept looking. I'm like, that is Nancy Drew. I'm like, oh, it's really not. Her name is Abigail Cohen. That's who plays Bloom Peters. And Nancy is Kennedy something. But the hair color. They look very similar. They acted exactly alike. So if that girl wants to quit Nancy Drew, they can pull Abigail in and she can be the new Nancy Drew and they wouldn't miss a beat. That's how close to character she is in Winx. in Fate Winx. And it's kind of disturbing. The show added pointless love triangles when they should have spent that time building the girls' friendship. We could have broken down a stronger season in a few minutes. I agree with that. I absolutely agree with that. I don't understand why they did not focus on their bond, because they're supposed to. That's the main point of this. They became friends, and then they eventually got the specialist boyfriends. It was never one person's in the room, they don't feel like talking, running out of the room. The other person doesn't want to deal with this person. This person's a snitch. It's all like they're all over the place. But then they wanted to act like these girls were BFFs, and that is not how BFFs act. So I'm like, I don't know what school you went to, but that's not how me and my friends were. So it's weird. It's just really, really weird. As soon as I heard one of the writers from the Vampire Diaries was in charge, it really explained a lot. Yep. It did. I mean, it basically was what we were watching, the Vampire Diaries with more magic and darker elements, even though Vampire Diaries was pretty damn dark. I feel like Bloom's entitlement will only grow in the next season. I know, especially when she realizes who she really is. Main contributors to the plethora of the supernatural creature existence. I think this show does well entertaining us and not preaching at us. That's my problem with many other shows. Yeah, and like I said, I know that there are people that are in their feelings about always seeing. Okay, again, I think I said this in many other streams. I'm queer. I'm a minority. I live in the South. I'm a product of an interracial marriage. My daddy was Black and Native American. My mother was born and raised in Scotland. I've said this a million times. Although I get every nationality under the sun. People think I'm everything from Filipino to Korean. I watch K-drama. There is no Korean here. I do not look anything like a Korean, but I swear to you, with my Korean American spouse, people think we're sisters. It is absolutely insane to me. So I have learned that people see what they want to see. They hear what they want to hear. The problem with being woke and having shows that have representation and people feeling like they're being force-fed this is that you may think that you may not need this lesson, but there are idiots out there, and I live with a lot of them, who think my marriage is unholy, think my parents being married was a taboo, and that I'm some kind of spawn of Satan from being mixed and I'm going to hell. There's so many things that is wrong with the way some people think. So when you put these things in TV shows, for you're being force-fed. For this, all it does is piss racist people and transphobic people and homophobic people off because they don't want to recognize that people exist like this in the world. It is 2021. And the struggle is just as real as it was in 1752. So I'm just putting it out there. The struggle is real. And if it doesn't affect your life, that's fine. But it affects so many people's lives. So seeing queer characters, seeing representation, it does matter. Because when I was in school, I'm 45 years old. When I grew up and I was watching TV, there was no interracial marriages. There were no queer content. I barely saw Black characters outside of the Cosby Show that were actually, they had really good jobs and weren't like Good Times actually living in the projects. And Good Times was a good show. But I mean, this is the type of stuff that we used to see. And now you have people that are actually, they're doctors, they're lawyers, they're private eyes, they're superheroes. And that's new. And the sad thing is we're only seeing this from the past, 5-10 years, in prime time. And don't get me started in the LGBT. If you were gay, you were killed off instantly in every damn show. And quite frankly, they still do it. So, I mean, I'll look at movies or shows, or they'll have like two women together or two men, and one of them either is going to die or get a job and they break up, or somebody's going to I can't handle the emotional stress of people not accepting us, so I'm going to marry the opposite sex. That's literally how it is across the board. And it is disturbing. So whereas people are afraid and sick and tired of agenda and being woke, people that are in that scope that need a little bit of wokeness and agenda are tired of seeing themselves on TV shit on. And that's how I feel about that. So I get on my soapbox on that because I see it both ways. And I've always told people, the people that are very nasty with comments that come on my channel, a queer woman, a minority woman's channel, and like to say, why are you talking about this woke agenda stuff? My normal phrase is, if you don't like being awoke, then take your ass to sleep. That's all I got to say. I can't I can't stress that enough. I'm tired of that conversation. I missed the beginning, but did you discuss the messy bisexual representation with Dane? Of course I did. Of course. As a whole ass bisexual, I was in my feelings. I'm like, because that is how we are represented in media. We have to sleep with everybody because that is what it is. It's bad enough within the LGBT community. We are also treated with biphobia. But then we see ourselves in there like, oh, well, you swing both ways. So it's okay for you to have a polyamorous relationship or to be a swinger or to do whatever, because that is what your role is. You can't be in a successful relationship with one gender because you're always going to be thinking about the other one. That is bullshit. Like, so yeah, I did not think Dane was a good character, and I did not appreciate the whole Riven Beatrix Dane situation at all. I just don't. Aisha was the smartest of the bunch. She was the one that was studious. She was the one that followed the rules. So yeah, she was Hermione. Aisha was Hermione in this. Charm season, CW season 3 or Fate Winx Saga. Which one do I like better? Well, they're drastically different shows. So, if you're asking me which one I would enjoy watching, honestly, it depends on the plot, because Charm's writing sometimes pisses me off too. So it really depends on the storyline that's happening. The season finale is Friday. So ask me that question again after Friday and I'll tell you an honest opinion. I am very curious to see how Fate Winx Saga is going to write itself out of this hole that they're currently in. So I'm going to watch the next season. I'll probably review it because I want to see how they write it. It's like, even if it's something like, if partially has a train wreck agenda, you still have to watch it because you want to see how it's resolved. And with Charmed, even though I do love the characters, the writing for me is just a mess. So it's hard. It is hard for me. It really is. I mean, Bonnie got screwed, but at least she got better storylines. She did eventually, because at first she did not, but eventually she did. I remember when they killed her off and brought her back as a spirit. That was interesting. And continuing on this low budget attempt at Fate lore, it shows that with the bigoted and prejudiced actions of a power hungry fairy and her entitled, well, willfully blind minions. That seems to be a trope in a lot of shows, unfortunately. I read the Shadowhunter books, but the whole fake incest thing was annoying as hell. Yeah. The Jace and Clary thing being potential siblings was very bothersome. The Winx Saga is 1,000 times better than Charmed. Any comparisons is like apple and orange comparisons. Really, I'm directing this towards someone else in this chat. Okay. I got you. Yes, make Aisha a princess. I'm telling you, I don't know why they aren't princesses, because they were all princesses. It doesn't make any sense. You have a whole make-believe universe. You can do whatever the hell you want. Why aren't you keeping them as princesses? I don't know. It makes me upset that Stella is the only princess in this whole scenario. It's just stupid to me. Well, Aisha was the smartest of the bunch, sans Musa, but what drove me up the wall was the way how they basically make Aisha a literal doormat and made her backstory. Is it Wade? Oh, Wade. What little backstory we got, you mean? Like I said, we didn't have enough time to focus on all of them. I wish we did, but we didn't. It's a thing though. Space Force never got a season 2, right? After that freaking cliffhanger. I don't know. I have no idea if Space Force is getting a season 2. I would love for Space Force to give a season 2 because I actually really like that show. They said that they're actually getting a season 2. Well, officially, it says it will, officially be coming back for season 2. In November of 2020, they gave it the official nod. So yeah, they should be getting Space Force season 2. I just don't know when it's coming out. I really, really enjoyed that show. So they better come back. In the cartoon show, Stella and Bloom and Sky were princesses. Yep. Well, Stella was, Bloom was. Sky wasn't a princess. Sky was we're going to call him a specialist with an interesting backstory. But Aisha was a princess. Musa was a princess. Like, all of them were princesses. As a matter of fact, Stella's mother, Queen Luna, was not the queen anymore because she was divorced from her dad. So she's the ex-wife of the king. But I guess she gets to keep her status or something like that. I don't know. It was really weird. So yeah. completely different in the cartoon. But again, you have to separate it. This is like a comic book. It is a completely different universe. What about her being a princess on the lamb portion of Andros, her love of dancing and expressing herself? What about her lost friend Anne, who had a slight crush on her until she moved away? Yep. None of that will make it. We won't see any of that. Well, I'm here for Sam and Musa because let's get real. Finally have a stable relationship that's not bound in years of toxicity. Agreed. Like how it was in the canon of the Winx universe on both sides, with Riven, and it showed in the many seasons over. Yeah, and I think even now, I haven't watched the last season. They got their stuff together, and I think they are back together because I know they broke up for a while. I feel the whole excuse of trying to include perspectives on body image with Tara is just a convenient excuse. I heard a better argument for Tilda Swinton's casting in Doctor Strange, and even Kevin finally regrets whitewashing Ancient One in Doctor Strange. Oh, I'm sure he does. Well, you're going to see this a lot in my my collaboration with another YouTuber. We're going to talk a lot about mixed identity and mixed erasure. But when you are biracial, things happen that are very strange. And like I said with Shang-Chi is supposed to be biracial. He is Eurasian. And they act like it's completely okay to just make him completely Asian. Like the other side doesn't matter. And that is what mixed people face a lot in this country. We are not allowed to claim both sides or all of our sides. You're always told to pick a side. And so that comment right there rings true to me, because by him saying he regrets whitewashing the Ancient One, I guarantee you he will never say, I regret making a basically a biracial character a monoracial character. You will never hear anyone complain about it. It will never be a concept. It will never be an issue. And it irritates the hell out of me. It really does. And instead, people like me who look ambiguous, we have to take roles that aren't even in our culture, like being half Black and half Hispanic. Hence, Macy's actress and Maggie's actresses not being Latina or Hispanic at all, but playing them on a show. Any other culture would be upset and call that cultural appropriation, but because they're biracial and ambiguous, they can do it. I don't understand this, guys. Somebody needs to explain this world to me because it is very confusing. Actual biracial characters are basically made monoracial, and then monoracial characters are casted with biracials. Somebody explain this world to me. Don't get me started, Riven. I know he was essentially Sky's friend, and he's struggling with his toxic masculinity, homophobia, body shaming that kept rearing its ugly head each time he opened his mouth. I agree. Redheads, they all look the same. I'm literally scared with how they're going to portray Despero, because let's not forget how quickly he made Bloom the side piece and how he stringed them both along in the canon. Yeah. But we might not even get that storyline. Remember, this is a completely different Earth. So, I don't know. I truly do. However, I think you're misunderstanding me to some extent. I truly don't care what race or culture or sexuality any character is normally. I mean, there's some old comic stuff. Michael, I'm not essentially talking to you. Whenever somebody says something, I use that to just say my opinion. So if you took that as me coming at you, I apologize. That's not what I'm doing. I am saying how I feel whenever I hear woke and agenda, because that is something that triggers me. Like, I really never get triggered about opinions on imaginary content. None of that. People can come at me with that, and I swear to you, all I do is laugh. It's hilarious to me that you're coming at me over a character that does not exist in the real world. So I find that funny. But when it comes to actual things that affect my life, like racism, homophobia, transphobia, because my spouse is trans, that stuff, when I hear, why has everybody got to be gay? Why are there so many trans people? Why is everybody got to be Black? Blah, 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 it pisses me off. So that's why I have to disclaimer that is how I am on this channel. Because when people look at me in real life, they feel comfortable saying racist and homophobic stuff around me all the time because they don't realize who I am and what I am. And that is something I deal with every day. People look at me and they think it's okay to say these racist remarks about this other group of people, not realizing I'm part of this other group of people. So it's a thing. It is a thing. My hope for season 2 is that they focus on the girls' friendship a lot outside of the stuff about the Burned Ones and Rosalind. I would love that. I want them to spend the first half of the season with these girls bonding and actually having a conversation where they actually listen to each other and don't just say, and just kind of blow it off. Let's not forget about they came to actual magic blows, assault and treachery on a kingdom level. True. Well, I think we might see some of that in this. Other than sticking with canon with old comics, I'm cool. I'm talking about social issues where half the country disagrees on something or isn't sure, and they push it and push it and push it until pushing and pushing until the story is just annoying and boring. You get what I'm saying? Like I said, there's going to be extremes in every journey. there are going to be extremes. It's just what it is. It just depends on why you're getting mad. If you're not getting mad because two guys are kissing, do you? I mean, nobody wants to see two characters kissing. I don't want to see heterosexual characters kissing all the damn time because it's not plot. There's no point in the plot. It's not plot driven. Yes, we know you're into each other. Yes, we know you need to have this little scene moment, but when you do it in every episode, every other scene, yeah, that's problematic. It is. But if a lot of the people get in their feelings with the concept of same-sex people kissing each other in their favorite shows, and that is a problem. That is a absolute problem. If you don't care that, Superman is making out with Lois Lane or Peter was making out with MJ, please do not care, in general that we've got, Iceman dating and making out with some guy, or Sunspot making out with a guy, or you have, Carolina and Nico making out in The Runaway. Don't care about that because it's essentially the same thing. And if you get in your feelings about it, then that's your problem. So that's the point that I make. But yeah, pushing an agenda on somebody in general is never a good thing. People should have you should be free to speak your mind. You should be free to believe what you want to believe. The problem is that it doesn't stop there. It actually gets to a point where it affects other people. And that is a problem. So yeah, we can sit here and debate and talk about this all day. It's pointless. It's just pointless. So now I know a person from the Toxic Vampire Diaries who mainly at the CW. I'm generally scared for writing a plethora of characters that come and fall from this show. Yeah. I don't know, guys. I don't want this to become the Vampire Diaries, but I can't tell you that it's not because I'm already seeing elements of it in the series. So it's a thing. But again, like I said, if you separate the lore of Winx, like all of Winx, you take Winx out, you're like, okay, this is not the Winx that I grew up with. Yes, they have the same names. Yes, some of the locations are the same. They have a tiny bit of the same plot. If you take this and just say, hey, art imitates art and separate it as a completely alternate universe, this is what this story is, then none of the things we're upset about really make any sense, because this is how this Earth functions. It's literally like watching, it's like seeing Spider-Man 2099 and then hopping back to Earth 616 for Peter Parker. Or going and seeing Miles Morales and then hopping over and seeing John, or going to Spider-Man Noir, any of the Spider-Verse. It's literally like hopping through the Spider-Verse. I guess that's the best way I can say it. Same concept, same type of heroes, different story. That is literally the only way I could watch this. It's like the only way I could accept this was that it is a different alternate Earth. This is the our Fate Winx Saga comic book, not the Winx Club comic book. That is literally what I did. It's the only way I could do it. I'm sorry. I mean, I think we're near the same age. I used to love Sanford and Son, Good Times, and the freaking Jeffersons. Oh, heck yeah. Watched them all. And Red Fox was hilarious. Well, as I actually like Beatrix, I actually think casting the Tricks as 3 separate characters was a mistake. I do agree with that, but I guess it's just like with the Headmaster. I don't know why they had to have a hybrid of all these characters. Maybe they couldn't afford to have them all. I don't know. Maybe they had a tiny casting budget. I don't know. Let's see. And it'd be the same people that trash female led movies and any of the minority led movies like the MCU because it's woke to them. Yeah. Like I said, I mean, you're going to see it from both sides. I think the funniest thing for me is when people got on Reddit and they were bitching about Batwoman being made to be a lesbian. And I'm like, this tells me you guys have never read the Batwoman comic, because Kate Kane has always been a lesbian, card carrying, very proud, for years before this was even a show. For the conception of this CW show, Kate Kane was a lesbian. So it's just people getting their feelings about it. I don't know why. I don't know what it is. I don't know why it's so taboo to be what you are, because when you get up and you go outside, guess what? Everybody around you is something different. You probably don't realize it, but they are. So, I mean, it's a thing. But to be fair, like whenever I talk about agendas and wokeness, I mean, I'm biased because, again, I am a minority and I'm in the LGBT community. It's a thing. So I can only talk about it from my perspective. I try to keep an open mind about stuff, but I'm talking about it from my perspective. But I live in the South, and you have to understand, when you live in the Bible Belt, no hate towards anyone who's a Christian. This is not what I'm saying to you. But when you live in the Bible Belt, you are taught here that what you are is wrong. A church that I was looking at to get married in, for instance, literally, I know for a fact there was a child molester who was a member of this church, who was apparently saved and, rehabilitated and blah, 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 and was allowed to be a member of this church. He wants to get married, has no problem having a marriage with this child molester of multiple children in this church. But yet we couldn't get married there because they saw us as same sex. And that is evil. So that's where I'm coming from, guys. My marriage is deemed worse than being a pedophile or a child molester. That is insane to me. So just making a point. I still don't understand the logic of railing against minority representation. It's not even social justice. It's just really minorities simply exist. I agree. Tara was supposed to represent body positivity, but tell fat jokes. Can someone explain that? Because you know how it is. You can talk about yourself, but nobody else better not talk about you. I don't know why that's a thing. I'm one of those people that doesn't even like saying the N-word. Of course, I can't say the N-word, but I don't support, anyone Black saying the N-word, because I've always felt that's a derogative term and story. And people will absolutely argue that down that, it's basically part of the language. It's how, people can talk to each other. People within the Black race can use that in an endearing way. And I'm like, no, it's always been a derogative word. And so I've always been against it. But, people, you can't tell people nothing. So thanks. I've been saying that for the longest. Yep. Can we ask for a co-hosted stream with Simon in the future? Well, he's snoring right there. So, I mean, my dog would pee himself if I held him up to this thing. When I got 500 subscribers on this count, I had him in the video of dancing, and he was like, what is happening? His eyes were like this big. He's terrified of this camera. I kind of am hoping this week's Charmed episode is written good. And by the way, Charmed is another 1 week break after 316. Okay. That's fine. Like, whatever. I guess it gives me more time to do other things. I'm still pissed at how they treat witches or warlocks within his universe. I mean, the fairies and many of the older sect of specialty treat individuals who use magic in alternative ways. Like, you have to scroll down, viewers. Like runes, charms, hexes, and potions. So you mean to tell me Luce, Callum, Claudia, and Harry freaking Potter being demonized and killed on the spot for being different? Yep. Yep. That's literally it. Like Batwoman, for example, they act like pretty much every white character on the show is a racist. It's ridiculous, insulting, and boring. I will agree with that. I don't actually know why. I can say that, like, they really do. Except for Kate. I don't really know what they think about Jacob, but Kate doesn't. Well, okay, so Kate and Alice aren't really shown as racist. Alice is a non-discriminatory killer. Like, she will kill anybody. And I really can't say that they say that about Kate, only because technically her best friend was Luke, and he's Black. Her stepsister is Asian, and the woman she's in love with is Black. So I don't think they make Kate Kane racist, but I can see how you would see. I guess the problem is, this is what I'm going to say. This is the problem. The only time we see other white people is when we're dealing with the Crow and the GCPD, or we're dealing with like canon comic book villains who were always white. So, because again, they didn't put a lot of Black characters in comics back in the day. So, I mean, let's be real. Golden Age of comics was not minority friendly. There was no representation. You had token characters every now and then nothing. So I get what you're saying, but I think it's more of a problem of they're only bringing in the villains and that are white, and the only other representation we have are the dirty cops and crows that are white. We need to see more people. We need to have characters that are not affiliated with the GCPD, crime, or the crows, and then maybe we'll have another outlet. So that's the bigger problem. The bigger problem is we're not seeing that. So yeah. So I will say I do see your frustration on that, but that's 100 trillion% a writer's problem. It's kind of sad considering the showrunners are white. I'm just putting it out there. I love when I see people of color and LGBT people in shows, and I love hearing the shows, but I love clever learning, not meaning so subtle it's not there, but it just being there. I feel like shows now are just preaching. Yeah, right. Well, right now, and you're gonna hear this with another collab that's in the UK. They're going through what a lot of people are like really hated about affirmative action. Affirmative action was needed in this country back in the day for obvious reasons. But now it's also like every other good intention program, it can be abused. And in the UK, I've learned that because of BLM, they're actually they're taking people out of their jobs that are white, and they're basically putting unqualified Black people in these roles. And even the Black culture in the UK, they're like speaking out against it, because all you're doing now is making more hatred and more separation by villainizing Black people, by putting them in these positions they never asked you to give them. So there's always an extremist to everything. Let's be clear on something. The CW, the Dare to Defy and all of this crap, this is all a movement. CW was not doing this back in the day when they started. So, I mean, this is all to stay relevant. This is like a corporate move to stay in the media. Because if they really were being representative of all the stuff they said they were, they would have been doing this out the door. And then we would need to have preaching and agendas and being woke. That is the problem. So there's a lot of areas surrounding all of this movement, because it is a necessary, BLM is a necessary movement, because at the end of the day, what we watch on TV and movies does not stop the fact that people are getting killed on the streets out there. It is what's happening. And so that is reality. What's happening on the television shows, yes, I love representation, but I do agree. I agree that it can be put to an extreme. Like, again, back with Charmed. They are accepting two women who are half Black and half white as half Black and half Hispanic, not thinking that maybe the Hispanic culture may have a problem with seeing themselves not on TV in these roles that they're being represented as. That is literally the definition of cultural appropriation. But they saw no problem casting these women because of how they look. That is a big problem. And as much as I love, Madeline Mantock, and I think Sarah Jeffrey is adorable, I love Macy, I love Maggie, even though sometimes they get, Macy gets on my nerves on a weekly basis. The actress is gorgeous. She's very talented. I followed her in the Tomorrow's People. Tomorrow People was a very good show. I loved her as Astra in that. I've watched her in a lot of stuff. I have no problem with these actresses. They are just taking a job. They are just doing what they do. They're actors. But the problem is the people that cast them had no problem, zero problem casting them based on how they effing looked. It is not their culture at all. They do not speak Spanish, which is why when they have Spanish roles or Spanish lines in this show, it's very minute. It is so small. And even Maggie's character said, I guess I should learn more Spanish. You grew up around Mel. Mel's fluent and you're not. Your mother was fluent and you're not. Why? That makes no sense to me. But they had to say it because the actress doesn't speak Spanish, because she's not Latina. So, guys, the problem is a lot bigger than most people understand. It's a lot bigger than people understand. So, but you'll learn, because I told you we're gonna have some videos on here that are gonna address a lot of this crap. So, I think I already read that one. Okay, let me check the time. All right, guys, I have time for one more question, then I got to get a move on, because my appointment is at 4:00 and it is 3 and it is 45 minutes away. I need to get through traffic. So one more. Sorry. Trying to make sure I see people are. I just jumped to the bottom. I don't like how instead of making River actually gay or bi, they just put him in the threesome. Riven. When you said River, I thought you were talking about my spouse. I was like, wait, my spouse was in the threesome. What's happening? I don't like how instead of making Riven actually gay or bi, they just put him in the threesome with Beatrix and is low-key homophobic most of the time. I also didn't like Dane's character development. I don't like Dane's character. I think Dane's an ass. And I don't like the fact that they did use him as bisexual representation. So we are on the same page there, because that is not how I am. I don't actively think I need to get with a guy and a girl at the same time or I'm going to die, and then I'm going to low-key hate myself for being attracted to the same sex. That's just so stupid to me. So it's a thing. All right, guys, I love you. You guys are awesome. I wish we could talk about this more. Anything you want to talk about, especially Winx, please put it in the comments so we can continue this conversation, because we like doing that on this channel. And then be on the lookout for some more videos coming up, because they coming. Again, quick reminder, no Arrowverse Tuesday tomorrow. Tomorrow is Motherland Fort Salem. I already have the stream, so make sure you basically set the reminder, because it won't tell you half the time, even with notifications, when it goes live. But it will be right after Motherland Fort Salem airs tomorrow. And then I will create the stream when I get back for Arrowverse Wednesday, which will be in the afternoon. So that's how we're doing it, because I need to do the Flash, Legends of Tomorrow, and Superman and Lois all at one time. And there's no way I can do that after Motherland Fort Salem. So please, 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 please put your comments below so we can carry on the conversation. And if you have any theories on what's going to happen in season 2 of Winx, let me know as well. But yeah, if it's day for you, have a good day. If it's evening for you, have a good evening. And I will see you guys later. Bye.